Hey everybody, it's your girl Charlotte Van Horn, Black Expats in Panama by way of little old Glassboro, New Jersey. You know it right here on blacksedradio.com. How you doing? What you working with? You know, we have amazing guests that come on our show, and so I ain't got time to sit and chit chat and smile with you because I know y'all want to meet the amazing Dr. Mariama Ross, who has been living in Ghana for 18 years. I'm so proud to have you on the show. I'm so glad that we connected, Dr. Ross, because you are my first person that I've interviewed, I think, who's spent a significant time in Africa. So do tell, spill the tea. Tell us all about yourself.
Well, Charlotte, let me say, first of all, I'm very pleased to be with you today. Uh, I'm very excited about the work that you're doing in Panama. And even though I am not there yet, I'm happy to add whatever I can add to the work that you're doing there because it's so very important and so very interesting. So
Yeah, thank
you
you
just
for
want
that.
me to, you just
Yeah,
want
go
me to
ahead
dive?
and introduce yourself. Tell us where you're from, and just take it all the way up to how you started traveling.
Okay. I was born in Detroit,
Mhm.
and let's see, got married at a pretty early age. I was much too young to be married, but that didn't stop me. uh, that marriage didn't last too very long. But anyway, I don't need to go down that path. Uh, let's see. I lived in Detroit until about when I turned 19, I left
Okay.
and wound up in California by way of Fort Knox, Kentucky. But that was the first husband anyway. Uh, in Oakland, California. That's where I remarried sometime later and raised my three children, two of whom are still there.
You're from
My,
Detroit.
I'm from Detroit. My three kids were born in Oakland, California, and my oldest lives now in Minneapolis with my two grandchildren, and my two middle and my middle child and my youngest child are still in California. I came back to the Midwest to do my PhD at Indiana University, and when I was in my late 40s, actually, I started that. And let's see,
Your PhD after your kids were grown?
yes,
Wow, okay.
yeah. But while they were growing up, I worked. I was a school teacher. I've always been in education. I was a school teacher for many years, and I did a stint of a few years as an interior designer in the Bay Area. Um, that kind of didn't work out very well because my soul is I'm an educator.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
can't think out of that. Uh,
Doesn't hurt
and
to
so,
try.
yeah, sorry.
It doesn't hurt to try different things, but you know when you
Yes,
know. It was
yeah.
a confirmation for you.
My undergrad degree, my first degree was in art. So I thought that going into interior design was a logical, uh, jump. It would have been, except that the business of it in the San Francisco Bay Area was not conducive to Black women really in that era. It may or may not be better now, but I decided to leave it alone. Anyway, it was a good experience. All
Mhm.
experiences are good experiences.
Exactly. So okay, so you were in Cali. You did your PhD when
Yes,
you
and I
were
raised my
younger.
kids
Mhm.
and I decided that I got a master's at Stanford in education and then decided I wanted to work in education at a higher level. So that required a PhD. So I
Mhm.
went to Indiana University in Bloomington, Indiana, and did the PhD. And that was when I got my feet wet um, in Africa. Um, I had a chance, well, the timing of that is slightly different, but anyway, in those early years of doing the PhD, I had a chance to come to Ghana with a group of educators, and I just loved it. I just stepped off the plane and fell in love with it just
Let me ask
instantly.
you this. So around what year was that?
That would have been 1997.
Okay, so up until then, had you been a traveler, like I mean, maybe not to Africa, but had you been a traveler, or
I
was this kind of your first major trip?
I had been to Mexico 2 or 3 times by then, but nothing that I would consider major.
Yeah,
And and certainly no thoughts of relocating to another part of the world had entered my mind.
right.
However, um, and this is jumping the story a little bit, both my parents were uh, committed, obsessed travelers,
Really?
particularly, yeah, particularly my father. And I'm going to come back to that, okay?
Okay,
Because he his coming to Ghana was the reason that I decided to stay in Ghana. Now, yeah,
okay,
that sounds a little
okay.
bit
So you
complicated.
came in '97 with a group,
Yeah.
and
And
you dug it.
we were here for 5 weeks, and I was just so in love with everything, except the business of being called Obruni. Now, Obruni is the Ghanaian word for gringo, and I know you know what
Okay.
gringo is.
Yes,
Okay.
I'm very
I could,
familiar.
yeah,
Rooney.
I could not understand why I, as an obvious Black woman, was being referred to as Obruni. Okay. And those of us in the group, there were about 5 Black folk in the group out of a total of 20. We were all called Obruni. And I didn't understand that because I had never passed for white a day in my life, ever.
Hmm. Hmm.
Uh-huh. But I crossed the ocean and all of a sudden I'm white because
Hmm.
Obruni translates to white man. The That's the literal translation. But what it means is person who comes from abroad, a person who's not from here, who comes from Obrochire, which means abroad, across the ocean. So I was not happy with that. I wanted to interrogate that point further and understand what in the world that's all about.
Right.
And I knew I was going to have to spend more time in Ghana to satisfy all of my curiosity, which was massive, but also to find out what was behind that.
Well, I think
So,
if you go to a place that you've never been and you enjoy 5 weeks there, that's a sign.
yeah,
That's a sign because you can go to a
yeah,
place. I can go to a place and I could be good for like 3 days or so. But sometimes by the time that week get there, I'm like, okay, I'm ready to go. But you
yeah.
enjoyed it.
I not only did I enjoy it, I was absolutely enthralled with everything, and I was I was very conscious of that at the time because people in my group are going, "Ew, it's too wet, it smells, too many mosquitoes. Ew, ew, I don't like the
Mhm.
food." You know, and I just didn't.
So y'all dug in. Y'all had a dug in experience. I mean, what was your mission there? Or was it just a vacation or what kind
No,
of a mission was it?
all of us were teachers. All of us were educators at some level or another. Some were teachers at the elementary school level, all the way up through high school. I was going into higher ed with the PhD, and so we ran the gamut of educators from all levels. But so we visited a number of schools and universities while we were here. We attended lectures by Ghanaian educators and other people who were involved in the education system in Ghana. And that was very, very, very revealing.
Enlightening and enlightening. It's
Enlightening.
people that go to Africa, I can just remember and I come from a place of when I met my husband, I was 30. And he was like, the first thing he told me is that when I retire, I'm going back to Panama. And I'm like, okay, well, that's nice. And I'm thinking to myself, first of all, I won't know the brother. I won't know him. My husband was 37 when I met him. Well, I said, well, I'm not going to know him, so it didn't really phase me. But I can remember thinking to myself, why would anyone want to live anywhere other than the United States of America? So I was totally locked in to um to the line. You know what I mean? I mean, I just feel like the US has been very good at branding itself to be like, you, this is the best, this is the best. Why would you ever want to leave here? So, I think that to go to a place that's so different and be able to, I mean, because like you said, you had only been to Mexico, and to be able to embrace it at that moment must have been very eye-opening for you.
It was. And let me at this point insert the bit about my father.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Um, my parents divorced after about 20 years or so of marriage. And that was a good thing. They didn't do well being married.
Okay.
Um, and so when he was single again, he commenced traveling to Africa. Now, before he got married, he was all over the place. He'd been to Russia. He'd been all over the place. He was a bad actor, my dad. He was. Yeah, and he got into a lot of trouble and it caused a lot of problems. But anyway, that's another story for another day. But he started going to Ghana with the express intention of moving there, of repatriating, as it's called here.
Okay.
And he came the first time in 1972 and hooked up with some people who I have since met, actually. And he came back in 73 with the intention of making this his home. Unfortunately, he contracted malaria and went back to the US and died.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. It was a real bad situation. And when I said my parents didn't do well at marriage, I, as the oldest, sort of caught the brunt of that in many
Mhm.
ways. And so at the time of his death, he and I were estranged.
Mhm.
And so I was not able to really talk to him and find out what the whole mystique of Africa was about, you
Mhm.
know. I didn't, we weren't talking, we weren't speaking. And so, but I was aware of the fact that he had gone. Of course, when he came back and got sick, I was aware of what had happened, uh, all of that. And I knew that I had missed out on something really, really important. And um, but I didn't know really what it was. So when I had a chance to go to Africa myself in
Mhm.
97, I jumped at the chance. And the whole time I was here, during that whole 5 weeks, I'm like, what was it that my dad saw that so intrigued him? What
Wow.
was his intention? What was he what was he planning to do that he couldn't do in the US? Now, I grew up in Detroit in the 50s. My parents were married in the 50s and 60s, which was not a good time for a mixed couple. My mother was white,
Okay.
and it was not a good time. It was not a good time for
Right.
anybody, certainly not for a mixed couple. So
Mhm.
that was part of the trouble. And so I came of age in the 60s in the Pan African era. Okay, and that also fed my curiosity about Africa.
Right.
Also part of my wanting to experience this because there's no need of me going around with a big afro and calling myself a Pan-African without having had experienced anything
Yeah.
about Africa.
Yes.
So after that 5 weeks, I knew it had totally changed me. I knew I had to go back. I knew I had to experience it on a deeper level because
Mhm.
we we weren't tourists in the sense that we came and went in 10 days time and we were done. We were on the ground for 5 weeks, but we were still only skating the surface.
Mhm.
And very well that it takes a long time to get
Yeah.
past the surface of a uh new place,
Yes.
to get out
Were
of
you
that.
near, where were you? Were you in the Accra area, or where were you?
We moved all over the country, and that was one of the very nice things about this trip. We went to a lot of different places all over the country.
In Ghana.
So
So you also lived in Uganda, where else?
yeah,
You got Ethiopia. So you experienced different parts of Africa as well. When did you decide to
yes.
do that? And were the differences like stark? I mean, I think that sometimes we look at countries as like this one thing. Like people
Mm.
say to me, is it like this in Panama? And I'm like, maybe not in Panama City, but
Yeah.
Panama is diverse. And so tell us a little bit about the differences between, that you saw between Ghana, Ethiopia, and say Uganda, and what still
Okay.
drew you back to Ghana.
Well, okay, fast forward. After I got the PhD, I taught at various universities in the US until
Okay.
I just decided I'd had enough of the US.
Okay.
And I wanted to go back to Ghana. I had been going a lot just on quick visits just because I was obsessed, Charlotte. I, it was an illness. My family thought I'd lost my mind, and to some extent, they were right. So I I went back and forth to Ghana for about 10 years until I had myself situated here in Ghana with enough connections, enough relationships built, enough knowledge of what I was getting into that I could make the move. And I made the move in 2007. I brought a container, my car, my whole professional library, everything, everything. And I was fortunate, really, really fortunate to actually get a job at a local university in Kumasi. And I taught there.
Remember, I'm sorry. In Panama, getting a job is not an easy thing to do.
Yeah.
So in Ghana, was it easy for you as somebody from you? No,
No, it
no.
was a fluke. It was a bit of a fluke. Uh, on one of my trips to Ghana before I moved here, I came here as a visiting professor.
Okay.
Was sort of like a Fulbright year, but it wasn't a Fulbright because I didn't get the Fulbright money. I just had a year of leave from University of Wisconsin where I was teaching at the time. They
Wow.
gave me research leave, and I boogied right back to Ghana.
To Ghana. Wow.
Yes. And so I was able to teach at the university in Kumasi for 1 year for free, but I was on grant money, so it was okay. And during that year, I made a lot of connections.
Mm-hmm.
And I let the faculty that I was working with and becoming friends with, because we were colleagues, we got on fine and it was all working out fine for me. I let them know that if they ever expanded the department or if anything ever opened up, let me know because I'd come back to work for them.
Yeah.
And several years later, that's exactly what happened. Yeah, the department grew. I had stayed in touch with people, and I said, "Hey, is this the moment? I'm ready to come if y'all are ready to have me." And they said, "Yeah, come on." And so I did. Now they
That was
Ghana is
2006.
that would have no that seven
Okay.
2007.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I came as a visiting professor in 2001, 2001, that academic year. And so it took another 7 or so years before I could still, get myself ready. Because it takes a while to extricate yourself from the US. You know this. You know
I
this
do.
very well.
I
Yeah,
do.
yeah, yeah. It takes a while. Uh, but at least I had put things in place. That's what I meant. By the time I made the move, I had things worked out.
Yeah, very organically, and it's like nowadays, so you had to be very methodical and
Yes,
intentional about what you were doing.
yes,
And even today, it's like now it's a lot easier, with the invent of, YouTube and,
yes.
all this different information that's out there. You just got to weed through it. But, you planned your work and worked your plan to
Yeah.
Ghana. And that's
And
what people still have to do.
yes, in the absence of YouTube and all the social media, I I spent a fortune on plane tickets because I
Yes.
was coming back and forth, about once a year because I just could not stay away. I was obsessed. It was a
Wow.
sickness.
That is something. So
Yeah,
at what point did you visit did you actually live in these other countries, or there were places that you visited as well?
I was well. when I retired from the university in Kumasi, that was when I started traveling because I had the time and I wanted to experience more of Africa than just Ghana.
Mhm.
So I went to both those countries as a volunteer. I went to Ethiopia as a volunteer with the Leon Sullivan International Foundation for Education, and I always forget what the I stands for. I forget. Anyway, it was a foundation that was, or an organization that was based loosely on Peace Corps. So that just gives you
Okay.
sort of a framework. Um, so with that organization, I was posted in a small town in northern Ethiopia for one academic year, and I actually taught at their university. A few years later, I hadn't had enough. Um, so I applied to Peace Corps and was posted in Uganda. And I was in Kampala doing a job. I did not, it was not a good, it wasn't a good fit. It wasn't a good match at all. Kampala is crazy. Um, and not too long after I'd been there for, well, I guess I'd been there for a few months. And I met some people, and they recruited me actually to be program director of a local NGO. And so I
Uganda.
was able in a Ugandan NGO.
Okay.
Yeah, NGOs and other small indigenous entities want a Western perspective. They will
You
often
know what
hire a
NGO is?
uh-huh, nonprofit organization.
Oh, really? It's called NGO?
It's the equivalent of it is a nonprofit organization, but NGO stands for non-governmental organization.
Organization.
Yeah,
Got you. Okay, got you.
yeah, yeah. I'm sorry.
Okay. So you lived there in those places like long enough, just, like briefly, what would the comparisons be? Like, we always wonder, like, in Ghana, what's the weather like? Did you need all your clothes? And then in Uganda, was the weather different? How was it different? How was the culture different? What did you like about it? What drove you still back to Ghana?
Well, I had property in Ghana. That's what drove me back.
Okay. But anyway, you were saying that one of the things that always brought you back to Ghana was the fact that you had a property there, which I want you to tell us the differences between Uganda, Ethiopia, and Ghana. And then briefly, let's just touch on having property in Ghana. Don't let me forget, okay? All right,
Okay.
so go ahead. It's all yours. Take it away.
All right. Uh, the differences between Ghana and Ethiopia and Uganda are, I mean, the three countries are quite different, but they share a lot of commonalities as well. Ethiopia is in Northeast Africa.
Mhm.
It's mountainous, so they have different climate. Um, Ethiopia has a very, very interesting history, and they were never completely colonized. It's I think, the only country in Africa that was never completely colonized.
Oh,
Yeah, and that makes a big difference. The Italians tried real hard. They tried real hard, um, but they never quite got a foothold there in order to do the damage that has been done in all of the other African countries by the colonial powers. Uh, so Ethiopia went through a period of, I could be wrong about this, but something like 100 years of almost total isolation. Uh, and that really, really, really made a difference in their culture. Their form of Christianity is, I think, unique to Ethiopia. It looks like Catholicism. A lot of people say it's the Coptic, uh, uh, whatever. They think it's Coptic, but it's not. It's their own Ethiopian Orthodox religion, and it's very much their own. And most people there are devoted practitioners of that religion.
I know what Coptic is, but I don't.
Coptic, and I'm not sure I'm going to be able to give you a good answer to that.
Is it
I could be
cult-like? Or is it like, no, okay.
OPIC, and it is a form, another form of what looks like Catholicism, but different. It's
COPIC.
Yeah, but that's not what is practiced in Ethiopia.
Not Kojic, Copic.
Copic.
Okay, got you.
Don't even hold on to that, because that's not what they're doing in Ethiopia.
Okay,
that's
okay.
What they're doing, I don't know where, Egypt or someplace. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that.
All right, I guess a lot of times I know if I don't know what something is, somebody else don't know too. So
sure.
Okay, so go ahead. Sorry, I interrupted.
No, that's
so
okay.
You said they have their own thing going.
Yes, and that long period of isolation has made a real difference in their culture and how they are in the world. Let's see. They are very mountainous for the most part. The food is quite different. The food, if you've ever been to an Ethiopian restaurant in the U.S., of which there are plenty, particularly in the East, D.C., New Jersey, lots and lots of Ethiopian restaurants. The food is very different from what you'll find, well, certainly in other parts of Africa.
I'm particularly drawn to African foods.
Who, you? You're not?
Me.
A lot of people are not.
No, I don't. It's not
Yeah.
anything. I mean, I probably haven't even tried a whole lot of it. I just don't really have a desire.
Yeah, but you're coming to Ghana, so you're going
to
have to.
Ghana, so I will be trying the Ghanaian food. But our facilitator is like, he mixes it up. Because he said your palate may not be ready for like 10 days of straight Ghana food, and so he really mixes it up and kind of lets you dig in at your comfort level. Because I'm not very adventurous either when it comes to food, especially when I'm out and about in the streets, honey. And in other countries where things are prepared differently, I'm really not adventurous.
Just one word of advice.
Okay.
Just try them.
Try them.
Just try everything.
Yes.
Just taste. Just take a little taste of everything that you can, just to say for the experience.
Just for the experience.
Yeah, you don't have to eat the whole thing.
Now, I will keep that in mind. Now, believe me, there's gonna be some things where I'm just gonna be like, nah, that's not me. But I will. I've learned that. I've learned that, and I think that's something about traveling, Mariama, that opens your mind. It's like, why you want to come all the way to Ghana to eat burgers? You know what I'm saying? You get people and they come to Panama, like, okay, what is the food here? I mean, experiencing the food when you go to places is a big part of the experience. Yeah. So I understand what you mean. So, okay, so you said Ethiopia is mountainous?
Yes, most of it, parts of it.
Is it cool? So it's the north, so it's cooler.
The whole, well, there's a portion of the country in the south that is flatter, and that is much hotter. But I don't want to misquote, but probably the majority of the country is mountainous, and so you don't have that hotter at sea level thing going on like you do in Panama.
Right.
The weather is quite a bit cooler, and because the altitudes are higher, the air is thinner. Like, yes, there were some people with us who were runners, for instance, and when we were in Addis Ababa, which is the capital city, they wanted to go for their morning run, and they couldn't hardly do it because the air is so thin. They were huffing and puffing and couldn't understand why they couldn't breathe. It's because the air is thinner. It's a higher altitude.
So the other question that a lot of people have, and I just want you to touch on real quickly before we move on from Ethiopia, is infrastructure. What was it like? Was it, this, was it like the city? You said something about the capital. Did it seem developed to you, like compared to Ghana, or what was that like?
In my experience, the capital city is a city that you would call a proper city. A city is a city.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Addis Ababa is a huge city with horrible traffic. It's noisy, it's dirty, it's very, very urban, very, very developed. So is Kampala, Uganda. So is Panama City, Panama. So is
Mm-hmm.
Accra, Ghana. A city is a city. And all of the development that goes on in these countries is mostly in the capital city. So
Okay.
once you leave the capital city, I'm talking now about the three African countries where I've lived. Once you leave those capital cities, you're in the country, you're in the bush. So you don't have big cities anymore. Well, in Ghana, you have a few smaller cities, but not nearly the level of development that goes on in Accra. So
Right.
in the smaller cities, you have, or in the smaller towns and in the villages, you have much more infrastructural issues with electricity, with water,
Mm-hmm.
with internet.
Transportation.
Yes, yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes. For instance, there's Uber in Accra. Outside of Accra, ain't nobody got Uber.
Right.
It's just not
Exactly.
there. Hmm.
And
Yeah,
I think that even when it comes to Panama, I mean, there are other nice places to live besides Panama City. I live in the suburbs of Panama. Um, and I think that people should see as much of a country. I love, as much of a country, or in your case, a continent. Like you've seen so much of Africa, you should see as much as you can. But a lot of Black expats want to live in the city. And I
yeah.
think it's because, once you start getting outside of the city, it's still pretty developed. They got some pretty nice suburbs here. Pretty nice suburbs, very, very nice suburbs. But, beyond them, you know you're really getting into the point where your wi-fi may not be working as well. You may have more water outages, different things that you want to deal with. And for me, it is hard to say third world and Panama in the same breath. I
No, you
really
shouldn't.
can't do the whole like third
You
world
should
type
not.
thing. I'm not
Mhm.
comfortable with that.
No.
And I will say that Panama, I've been coming here for 20 years now. Panama is extraordinarily progressive. So the city has expanded to they've built a lot of self-contained suburbs, so you go out so far, but then, like you said, as you get further and further out, you're losing the conveniences that a lot of North Americans need and want.
Yes, that's for sure. That's for sure. It was also true in Uganda. Uh, Once again, I was posted once I got affiliated with that local NGO. I was sent to their head office, which was in another tiny little town in the north, and where, it was the same old story, low infrastructure, nobody speaking English, anyway. So, but again, East Africa and West Africa have a lot of differences. Ghana, of course, is in West Africa. Ethiopia and Uganda are in East Africa. And I wanted to
Okay.
experience that difference. Uh, the food, interestingly enough, in Uganda is very bland, which is a stark difference from Ethiopia. Ethiopian food will light your fire. It will
Fire.
burn off
I just think fire.
your taste buds. I can't deal with it. And I've got Ethiopians in my family and I can't hardly eat with them. Uh,
Mhm.
and Ghanaian food tends to be very hot. Uh,
Okay.
so, but in Uganda, after having several meals there or several days, I said, well, are we being fed bland food because we're foreigners? And
Mhm.
I was told, no, that's just the way it's just the way it is. That's the way they cook. That's their taste. And I was shocked. I was shocked. Um, but in terms of the similarities, all of Africa, with the exception of South Africa, is firmly in the category of third world. I don't think too many people would argue with that.
Okay.
Uh, uh, South Africa is much more developed than the rest of Africa. Some other exceptions might be Egypt a little bit, but the rest of the countries are pretty much third world, which means underdeveloped.
Developed. Mm-hmm.
And underdeveloped. And not like Panama. You should not use third world when referring to Panama. They're not the same at all.
Yeah, people do.
Uh, People do.
People do, but I don't
They should
agree.
not. No, no. I saw something recently. It was a comparison put out by the World Health Organization, and they were doing a rating of countries all over the world. All of the African countries, with the exception of South Africa, were considered low income. Okay. Panama is considered high income. You'll be interested to know that.
Mm.
US is considered high income. Canada is. All of these countries are much more affluent across the board in per capita income than most African countries. And it shows. Um,
It shows, and it manifests itself in the price that you pay for things.
yes,
People come over here and, not everybody, but people that really don't do enough research, they come over here and they're expecting things to be like free. And it's not that kind of party. It really is
it's
not.
not.
And even though Panamanians don't make a ton of money compared to what we consider money, and also compared to the price of things, I think that Panamanians, I think where they get their strength is in numbers.
Mm,
And they may have, so if you have a family of 4 or 5, and everybody's bringing in maybe 800 a month, or something like that, that's a good family income. A lot of
yes.
times in Panama, what they live on family income. So they'll stay, at home a lot of times until they get married.
Yeah.
So when they put that income together, they can live well. Also, they know how to navigate. They know how to navigate based on their budget. First of all, ain't nobody going hungry in Panama. It's just too much stuff growing on the trees and too much fish in the water. I mean, it is plentiful. Panama is plentiful. You don't show me no sign talking about we'll work for food, because that just don't make no sense here. You got food. You are not going to starve here. You are not going to starve here. But it is not super inexpensive. You can buy, fresh fruits and vegetables from the corner stands. It's going to save you that markup from the grocery. A lot of times, people on lower incomes, that's how they make out. You can buy fruits and vegetables at the stoplight. You can buy a whole big bushel of bananas, and a lot of stuff. It's just easy. $1. $1.
Yeah.
Oranges, just all kind of stuff. And they make out, like that. But there are certain things that that are costly here.
Yeah. It's interesting in African countries. I've noticed that there are very poor people. I mean, the level of poverty is extreme
Mhm.
for larger percentages of the population.
Mhm.
And you do have the the thing what you're talking about of food growing on trees and in the rivers and so on. But you have things like drought and pestilence and other things that mean that the food is not so plentiful growing on the trees. We'll go for periods of no rain when it's supposed to be raining. And in parts of the country where, where the most of the agriculture is going on, like in the north, the north is sort of the breadbasket for Ghana in many ways. They suffer up there in a drought because things aren't growing. There isn't enough water. There's not
Right.
enough rain,
Yeah.
and irrigation is not doing that. The artificial, what do you call it? Mechanical irrigation. It's not a thing here. So when it don't rain, you don't eat.
Wow.
Uh, there's a lot of poverty in the cities, a lot. Because you don't, people have left the farms to come to the cities because they think there's more work in the cities.
Mhm.
Well, there isn't for the most part. Yeah.
So you live in Uganda. I'm sorry, you live in Ghana. You've been living there for 18 years. Can you tell us, like, what was it like getting your residency there? Are you a resident? Are you a citizen? And then also, what was it like purchasing your home there? Was it a cash purchase? Is it possible for foreigners to finance in Ghana? And what are like the cost of things?
Okay. Okay.
That's a lot. I know that's a lot. You got this, girl. Put it all
Uh,
on you.
yes, I'm a citizen. I was able to get my citizenship 2 years ago. Prior to that, I was a legal resident, and residency is it's the step up from the tourist visa, like it is in Panama. Okay, first you come in with the tourist visa, and that's good usually for about 60 days, and you may be able to renew it for another 60. But after that, they're going to be wanting you to get something more substantial, like a residency permit. And uh, it used to be that you needed to have land. You needed to show that you had acquired land. I'm not sure that is still the case. I don't know. I haven't had to do it for quite a while.
Mhm.
Um, but on one of my trips to Ghana, I think it was the year that I spent there in Kumasi as a visiting professor. I bought a plot of land, and
In Kumasi.
outside Kumasi.
Outside
Yes,
Kumasi. How far is Kumasi from Accra?
about 5 or 6 hours drive.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I think that it's on your itinerary for when you come. I think it is. I think you are
Uh,
coming to. Yeah. Uh, so when I attempted to buy that land, it was, same old story. The chief, these chiefs often will decide. See, the land doesn't belong to one person. It's tribal land, so it belongs to a tribe of people, and it's almost always used as farmland. Yeah? And at some point, somebody, usually the chief, will get it in his head that he wants to sell it off and make money for in the name of development. So they sell off the farmland, and they sell it to people like me or other. They sell it to Ghanaians, anybody who wants to build a house in yeah, and I'll come back to that in a minute. But selling off the farmland does what? It prevents the people who've been farmers from farming, and that contributes to poverty.
Yes.
That contributes to
It's a rural form of gentrification. Like,
yes, it is, and we'll come back to that too.
okay. Uh-huh.
Uh, so I was buying land in an area where some of my colleagues from the university had bought land, and I thought, okay, there's safety in numbers. I should be okay here. Uh, and it was a part of it was a farm formerly farmland that the chief had decided he was going to sell off. And so here I come, right, a foreigner, and he was going to try to charge me some ridiculous price. And I had not been on the ground very long and didn't really know any better. But I did have the good sense to go with a colleague of mine from the university who had also bought land in that same area. We had become friends, and he knew the place. He's Ghanaian. He spoke the language, and he went with me to meet with this guy. And he stood right there on my plot of land and said, "My brother, do not cheat this woman. Do not disgrace me by
Wow.
cheating her."
Wow.
Man. And he backed right down. And I never had another problem with that land.
Wow.
And that's what it takes, you know.
Mhm.
And I'll say this more than once. It really takes having somebody that you know well enough that you can trust, and they know you well enough to care about you, to care that you don't get ripped off because you are young and new in the country and stupid and naive and all of these things that we are until we're not. And, uh, and it takes time to develop those kinds of relationships. You don't just get down off the plane and think you can buy what you want because you want it. You bait. You're a walking target. And they know that. You don't know that, but they know that, and they're waiting.
Wow.
So anyway.
So when you came in with your residency, you would get so you come in with a tourist visa, and a tourist visa is good for was good for 60 days. Right.
Yeah, the first time.
Then you go up to, then you can apply for a permanent residency.
It's not permanent. No, you have to, and they keep changing it. Okay.
Okay.
It was the residency permit, you had to renew it once a year.
Yeah.
That's
a lot.
Yeah, right. It is a lot. And the system is not transparent. It's not easy. You don't know what to do until you've done it wrong. And then they charge you all kinds of fees. It's a pain in the butt, truly, truly. So after a while of getting resident permits that you have to renew every year, every once in a while, the government will open up the ability to get citizenship. This is not something that is automatic. It's not something that's done regularly. They'll open it up every few years and say, okay, come, you can apply to be citizens now. And the window will be like this.
You just got to hear about it.
You just got to hear about it. You just got to hear about it. And then you scurry around like a dummy. I'm sorry. It's a very sore point. You scurry around trying to get all your bits and pieces together, all your paperwork, and all of you got to get a police report and all of this stuff. And none of it can be done quickly, none of it. And they give you a window so small. And if you can squeeze through,
you gotta jump through. You feel like you gotta jump through hoops.
Oh, they're not even hoops. They are tiny holes. So they've opened it up 3 times in the 18 years I've been here. I missed the first 2 because I was in the States. Because I, come and go. I travel. I move around. I was somewhere when they opened it up. And the window is so small that you can't hurry up and get back and get it done.
Like a month or 60 days or?
Oh, no. A matter of weeks.
And they've only done it 3 times in the last, okay, all right, now I'm sorry, we got to skip again. Okay, so how is the return? How does that work? Wasn't it like return to Ghana, right? So was that 2019?
Yeah, first of all, let me say, they've opened it up again right now. Right now, the window is open. And all these new people are scurrying around like ants trying to get their reports done and their paperwork done. And they're supposed to have it done by Monday. And they've only had about, 5 or 6 days notice.
Get out of town. Then you probably got to go stand in a line.
You think?
Girl, and they know you're going to do it, especially if you want to be there, because what must it be like to have to renew every year?
But to come to your question about the year, it was called the Year of Return. And it was in 2019. And the government made this grand invitation to people of African descent around the world and invited them to come home. Come home. And it was during the time of terrible unrest in the US. It was during the time of the George Floyd murder and all of these other murders. And I can remember seeing the Minister of Tourism on the television saying in a big announcement saying, they don't want you there. Why don't you come to Ghana? And a lot of people did. And a lot of people have. Now, what didn't happen is that no support mechanism was put in place for them to make it easy or possible in many cases for a soft landing. Nothing was put in place. And a lot of people came sight unseen. They thought, if the government has invited us, it must be okay. And they were so desperate to get out of America, understandably, we've all left America for good reasons.
Yeah.
Ah. And so they busted butt to come over here, and I don't know how many, thousands came and hit the ground, and the people there, all the predators and opportunists, all the chiefs that wanted to make money are waiting for them. And so,
Gold rush.
yeah, yes. It's like Black Friday, right? Literally. And so these poor folks didn't have a bit more idea of what they were getting into than the man in the moon.
Oh, was there enough places for them to stay? I thought somebody had said there was like people that didn't have nowhere to stay. Was that part okay?
Well, people can always stay in hotels. There's plenty of hotels.
Oh yeah, but somebody had told me that, and maybe I'm thinking of another country, that people had got there and then it was like the hotels were overrun, because of the influx of people and stuff like that. No.
No,
So
no.
they had said, so basically the thought was it was going to be open for them to get citizenship.
Yeah, they were told, and I don't know if they were ever told that officially, or if it was just something that somebody heard on YouTube, because there's a lot of misinformation flying around the YouTube.
Yes.
A lot.
Yeah.
Part of the problem was that some of these opportunistic chiefs and others put it out on YouTube and elsewhere that there was free land to be had. Just come. We have free land for you. Our brothers and sisters, come. We're going to give you free land here in the motherland, and all you have to do is come. When we say there's no such thing as a free lunch.
Yes. Yes. Well, I think that some people felt like, they want us there because we have resources. So that's why they'll give us the land, because they know we're going to spend like tons of money there. If they give us the land, we're going to build on the land. It's going to create jobs, and everything like that. So, wow. Wow.
And
So
that
it
part
didn't
is
work out
true.
that way.
Well, I mean, it does, because you can't do anything without hiring somebody to help you do it.
Exactly.
But, people were getting upset because it's free land, because these are not neatly set out boundaried
Yes.
plots, right?
Something to offer, but it was probably in a place where there was no running water and stuff.
Water, you didn't have roads, you didn't have light, you had nothing. You go out there and have somebody to show you where your plot was, and you couldn't see it because it's all bush. It had not been
You had
cleared.
to go by a drone.
Yeah, but then you wouldn't be able to find the pillars. They put these little cement things in the ground to mark the
Wow.
demarcation. Yeah. And if the place is all bushy, you can't even find those. So you got to hire somebody, and likely a surveyor, to go and help you find your pillars so that you can demarcate your plot. Then you got to go about the business of clearing it, because it's all bush and trees and weeds and stuff. And so once you get it cleared, then you can hire some more people to start the building process, which is another whole something.
So
So,
that was interesting. That was interesting to say the least, right?
well, it has been really an unfortunate experience for many people because they just were not prepared.
Mhm.
They had not done their due diligence. They had not come and done, any survey or expedition, or what do you call it in Panama? Your research trip, or what do you call
Yeah,
it?
relocation tour or nothing like that.
All of those. We don't have
Yes, yes.
not like that. We should, but now things are changing a little bit, because you got a lot of people now realizing that there are a lot of gaps that need filling.
Mhm.
And so you have people who are setting themselves up to be of assistance. Now, they are not all scrupulous either.
Right. I can't stress enough, no matter where you go. I mean, it's like you need to work with people who are referred by people who you know, and just really, really vetted. And nowadays, with AI, with the capabilities of the internet, it is so easy to make things look real. It really is. And so it still happens here, even with Airbnbs here. People come here and to Panama, and they want to do an Airbnb, and I talk to so many people, and they be like, it didn't exist. The Airbnb didn't exist. Okay, let me say, all right. So I'm getting close to my time, but I wanted to definitely cover. So you bought land and then built your house on your land. That's how. So you did a cash purchase.
Yes, that's all there is.
Okay,
You
that's
don't
all
get,
there is. Were you there the
yeah,
whole time your house was being built?
good
Were you in
question.
Ghana?
Um, I put up what is called the boys' quarters. Boys' quarters is like a cottage in
You
American
put up
terms.
a boys, what it called?
It's called a boys' quarters, and that's a
Okay.
British term. It refers to, in the British colonial tradition, the main family would live in the main house
Mhm.
until the boys of the family reached a certain age where they would be granted a little independence, and so they would get to live in a like a cottage on the
Okay.
same. Okay, and so
Yeah.
now properties that have boys' quarters, they're usually for the employees. You have your housekeeper who lives there, or
Yeah.
your watchman, your security guy, or whatever. Okay, so I built that first, and I was not in the country the whole time. I had a trusted housekeeper who lived in the house, but she was Ghanaian. She was a poor person. She didn't know about, she and I were operating on standards that were not the same at all. The levels of construction that she said were okay because she was overseeing it. When I got there, I'm like, what? So because we had different standards.
Yes. Yes.
So I did not start the main building until after I had moved there, to answer your
Okay.
question.
Oh,
And
okay. Well,
uh-huh,
that was saved you some money there
it
because
saved
had
me
you.
a lot of money because that's
Yes.
where a lot of people go wrong.
Yes.
Until they are actually ready to make the final move here, they will have bought land and then paid some contractor to build the house. And he's like, trusted. We trust him. We trust him. We trust him. He's a good guy. He's a nice guy. He's honest. Honey, you taking your money and building himself a house someplace. And that is such a common story. I can't even tell you how common that is. So you come back here looking for your house. A, it doesn't exist. Or B, you don't recognize it as anything that you would have paid good money for.
Exactly. That
Yeah.
part. And then sometimes even if they're not like, like a friend was building a house in Ghana, and I don't know what part it was, but her brother was overseeing things for her. But it was funny, they had to redo things because the water was flowing the wrong way and flowing right down to the house and stuff that I feel like here, like engineers might have caught, ahead of time. But what was so hilarious to me was it's like some of the guys that were working had like booty shorts and flip-flops. They
Yeah.
really literally had, I'm like, no hard toe shoes, no hard hats, no long pants. They literally had, and we laughed together because I was supposed to be looking at one thing, but I was just looking at how the scene was so, like you say, the standards. You can't just expect, even if you see a picture and you say, I want this house, you need to be able to be there to check the craftsmanship,
Yeah.
and just make sure that things are going the way that you're going to want. I would never. We built our house when we were in the States, and but we hired people, and our attorney, believe it or not, came and monitored this whole thing during that time.
Wow.
Our attorney, because I told Al I got to have an attorney because
Yeah.
all of this, everything was in Spanish. Is stuff in English in Ghana?
Well,
Okay.
no.
No. So,
English, Ghana is an English speaking country, but you don't learn it until and unless you go to school. And most common laborers haven't had much schooling, so they don't speak a lot of English.
English.
A
Okay.
lot of the
So
time.
there's probably a lot of dialects within
Yes, yes, yes,
Ghana.
yeah.
Yeah. So that
And
part,
not just separate languages, not just got dialects, separate languages.
separate languages. Okay.
Mhm.
Well, that part, you got to realize that there's a difference. So okay, so you got your house, and we would need 2 hours, clearly. But I do want to get to the fact that you are an author. Talk to me about that.
I can show you my books.
Hey, hey.
This was my first book. And I
Oh,
can't see
oh no, I
myself.
don't like lizards. Do you know that about me?
Yeah, I've heard you say that. And that's what the book is about. It's about me because I write all my books about myself. I'm in all my books. This is written from the lizard's point of view, but they're complaining about the fact that I kicked them out of my house. And uh and it was about when I moved into this house, which had been empty for a long time. And there were a lot of lizards in here. And so I committed all kinds of murder in various ways of lizards. And so that's what this book is about. But I know our time is short, but the picture
Space
you
and
see,
killing them. Wow. Book. So will the book make you empathize with lizards?
yeah, it did.
I need that book. It's on Amazon, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay. And all right, this is the second.
Macy's African Market Day.
Yeah. And this is about a little girl. See, both of these two books are written about,
Nisi. Nisi's Canopy Walk and Nisi's Market Day.
yeah.
African
Nisi,
Market Day.
Nisi is my granddaughter. And so these two books were written about experiences that she had when she came to visit her grandmother in Ghana.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And this one is about Nisi again, but her brother is in this one. Her brother Max is in this one. Now, they are both teenagers at this point. Uh, but I wrote this for them because I was hoping one day they would come to Ghana to visit me, but they haven't so far. But
Nice.
I wanted to show them.
Did you do illustrations too? For those that are listening to this on radio, you can't see it. You'll have to wait till the video comes out. So you did the illustrations?
Yes.
Oh, that's right, because you have an art degree. You studied art as well. Oh my
Yes.
goodness, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
I
So
love it.
that's Nisi and that's her brother Max or Mo in the book.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So all three of those are on Amazon.
Wow. That's super cool. And you just had a birthday.
Mhm.
See, y'all gonna have to see her too. You're 74 years old. You are beautiful.
Thank you.
You are a beautiful woman. Happy belated birthday to you.
Thank you. Thank you
Oh
very
my
much.
goodness. And so let me just say this. You've been living in Ghana for about 18 years, and I think you're now thinking about doing something different, right? So tell me just a little bit about that. And then I want you to go from that to basically give us just a little bit of advice on living internationally for the expats. I mean, you're a pro at it at this point. So talk to us.
Yeah. Um, Having been here for as long as I have, um, I've pretty much come to the point of feeling like I'm ready for a change. As I said earlier on when I was telling you how I came here and why I came here, this was sort of an experiment. I wanted to experiment. I wanted to see I wanted to experience myself. in these various settings. That's why I go to different places. I want to experience myself in those different places. And this is, I'm coming to the end of my Ghanaian experiment. There's, you can live in a place forever and ever and ever and still not know everything there is to know about it. But I've reached the point where this is not so very interesting to me anymore. I've done it. I have figured it out. You know, all of what these new people are going through now, I've done that. I've figured it out. I'm not really interested. And it sounds terrible, even coming out of my mouth. I hate the way it sounds, but I'm ready for a new adventure.
It's life.
So yeah, and I am a very curious person. I am a very adventuresome person, even including food, Charlotte. I like experiencing new foods and new places. Um, so I've done enough of this particular experiment. I want to see what life is like in your neck of the woods now. I'm looking at Panama, I'm looking at Costa Rica, and I expect to be making an exploratory trip. Probably the latest would be March.
Okay.
And it could be sooner depending on how other things evolve.
So in talking about, okay, so you have a house, what would be your plan there? And just briefly also, I don't think we talked about the cost of living there.
The cost of living is increasing. I mean, Ghana is suffering from massive inflation, but I think that's a worldwide phenomenon. I think that's going on around the world.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of what Ghana depends on, Ghana has oil. Oil has been discovered here, but we don't have any refineries, which means all of our gasoline is imported. We pay more for gasoline here than people do in the States.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so everything that we need to survive is imported. Cement is imported. Cement is that's the main thing people build with.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you asked earlier if people get mortgages? No. These days you can get a mortgage under certain conditions, but the interest is so high that nobody does it hardly. And we're not talking 10%, we're talking 30%.
Wow.
Yeah, 30, 40, 50%,
But can you
craziness.
still buy a house for $50,000? Is that like reasonable or
Yeah, if you got cash. No, actually for $50,000, no,
no?
not anymore.
So what,
But it will be cash, whatever it is, it's gonna be cash.
it's going to be cash. So if you was to say you wanted to buy a house, somewhere closer to the metropolitan area of Accra, what would be your low, mid, max, your low to mid ranges? What do you think, just off the top of your head, like within the Accra city province or whatever?
City limits, yeah. That's a real hard question to answer because most people build. And so there's not that many properties available for sale, you see. And because most people don't get mortgages because they're prohibitive, you build and it takes you years because you've got to do it with your money that you can afford to spend out of pocket, right? And that's why the place always looks so toe up because there's so many buildings that are literally under construction.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm not even sure I can answer your question.
So there
We,
are like a lot of like new high rises,
yeah,
and stuff.
in Accra, things cost almost American money.
Okay.
In Accra, there's a lot of money in Accra. A lot of Ghanaians have a lot of money in Accra. There's a lot of foreign money in Accra because the corporations that come over here to do business, that's where they station their people. And so the cost of everything is incredibly high. I can't afford to live in Accra. I can afford to live in Cape Coast where I live, but I can't afford anything there. And to make matters worse, we, all the diasporans who've moved here, we are the new gentrifiers, and we are driving up the cost of everything everywhere.
Mhm.
It's really ironic.
Same thing. It's all over. That's kind of all over the world, especially with such a big movement of people from North America leaving
Yeah.
the United States. I mean, it's, and when I say about that, in Panama, yes, we're the gentrifiers.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, somebody gonna buy that. Somebody gonna buy it. You know what I'm saying? And other people have been buying it for generations. Okay.
Yeah.
And they bought it when it was really, really inexpensive. Now it's a lot more. However, it's like, I don't think that we should not feel like we should take advantage of the opportunity to live a better, more relaxed life, because of the gentrification. What we need to do is respect the communities that we're gentrifying. So, okay, you're coming in there, so you don't come in like the colonizer. Okay, don't come in like the colonizer. Don't come in hot and colonizing. Okay,
Right.
make sure that, I've talked to different developers about building communities that are basically provided for African Americans that are here from the United States. And some of the conversation gets a little interesting because here's the thing: if you got to move somebody out their house to build this building, I'm not interested.
Right.
Okay. I don't want to be a part of that. I do not want to be a part of literally displacing people. You have buildings that come up, and people that live here are not ever going to be able to afford to live in them. Everything around it is going to go up because, somebody can afford this now. But that's one thing. But to move people out of their homes so that I can build there is something I don't want to be a part of. And the other thing that I ask is, building creates a lot of work. And I'm going to need to see some of that work, fairly distributed among melanated Panamanians. Afro Panamanians need to be a part of this development, and some of them, you know, and that's okay. That's their choice, because I don't have to build a building today. I will build the building when the Lord sets it up for me to do it, and it's the right opportunity for us. It will happen if that is what is supposed to happen. But yeah, the gentrification thing is real.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the irony though is it's almost funny because here we think we're coming back to the motherland, and the people in the motherland are going, we don't love that because you're driving up the cost of rent to where we can't afford to live here either. So they're not appreciating this.
They're not feeling it. It's not
No.
even a two-sided thing where you have a good part of them that says, okay, but there's jobs, there's opportunities for them as well when more money is coming to the area. And you know what I'm saying? So you don't feel like that weighs at all.
People who benefit from it are the people who are in a position to benefit financially from it. In other words, if I own several homes and I want to rent them out, I can rent them to an African American returnee for 4 times what I could get a Ghanaian to pay.
Exactly.
Now they are benefiting. Those people are benefiting.
Yeah.
And the Ghanaians look at that and go, because that price is not going to come down, you understand? Prices don't come back down.
Once it goes up. You're right. You're right.
Yeah.
So what would you say is, and I know this is so hard. People ask me this all the time, like, what's the cost of living in Panama? Girl, how you want to live, where you want to live, what you want to do, how much is on your social calendar. All of that is going to determine how much it costs for you to live anywhere. But like, if you just had to give, what do the reports say, like what's a minimum amount or whatever, what do they say you need to live comfortably in Ghana?
There's no such thing.
No such thing. Okay.
You see, the whole movement, the whole repatriation expat movement has not got to the point where it is in Panama and Costa Rica and down there where you are. There aren't any figures
Okay.
that
Okay.
anybody would consider official, you
Okay.
know.
They're still, yeah, I got you. Yeah.
I mean, we don't even know how many expats are here because nobody's taking, there's no census.
Well, here either. I mean, basically, I'm counting, I'm trying to count, but there's, and then when they do, I interviewed another doctor who's studying the Black tip movement. And the thing is that when they do say how many expats are living here, they never break it down, demographically,
Sure.
and so we don't know how many are there of those people are Black. I know, we bought hundreds here, so
Yeah.
it's a lot, and it's now it's in Panama City. I think to be in a foreign country and to walk down the street and be like, "Hey, girl, what's up?" Constantly running into people that who are
Yeah.
North American like you. It's like I love being in an international space. I love trying to learn this new language. I'm feeling so accomplished these days. And I love all of that. But then I love saying a line out of Color Purple and everybody cracking up because, throwing in a song said, "I think I better let it go." Just things that are family. It's like North Americans are your family. And having them around to enhance the experience just makes it feel more like home.
Sure. No question about it.
Yeah.
No question about it.
So tell us, okay, I could talk to you. Okay, it's clear. I could talk. They're gonna fire me one day on this radio show. But let me just tell me this. Tell me, just give us some few words of advice. Or did you start that? Because I know you said that you came to see how yourself would be, to see yourself in Ghana. Why did you put that?
I said I wanted to experience myself in
Experience
Ghana.
yourself, girl. That's heavy. I listen to that. Experience. You wanted to experience yourself, baby.
Yeah,
Put some icing on
because
some cake.
well, I mean, when I came here the first time with that group and we were here for 5 weeks, it was clear that each of us was experiencing ourselves in different ways. And my co-travelers, many of them were having a very hard time. There was one woman with us. I can see her face, but couldn't pull up her name if I had to. She had told her family in the US, say, "I'm going to Africa, and if I don't come back, y'all just sell all my stuff because I may not be coming back." Charlotte, she had such a hard time in Africa. She did not like it. It didn't work for her. And a number of, I taught at Georgia State for a few years before I came here, and I used to bring study abroad groups to Ghana. It was one of the ways I managed to get here myself because I would bring groups of students. And I remember there was this one young lady. She wasn't all that young. She was a mother of teenagers. And she broke down and cried more than once because she said, "They don't know me. They don't recognize me." People come here with all these expectations about being the lost tribe. Hmm? And coming back, and people are going to say, "Oh, welcome home. We've missed you." They don't do that. They say, "Oh, you're American. Bring your wallet, and we're going to help you spend the contents." And that is very hurtful. And on top of that, they calling you Obruni, which means white man. Okay, that's very painful, and it takes all of us, a long time to get over that. And so, what I would recommend for people is to, aside from taking your time, manage your expectations. Try not to have any. I know that's impossible, but the fewer expectations you have, the fewer you're going to have to change. because whatever you're expecting is not what you're going to find. I'm sorry, it's just not. It's just not. And if you can come with as open a mind as you can possibly manage, the less pain you're going to experience, because this is not like anything you've ever experienced before or will again until you have traveled a lot and you kind of recognize what you're seeing. I was telling one young woman who had only been on the ground for a few weeks, and she was upset because she just didn't understand. And I'm like, and you're not going to understand. You're not going to understand what you're seeing until you have been here long enough to have formed some context into which to put what you are seeing. You don't understand what you're seeing because you don't recognize it.
Mm-hmm.
You don't understand what people are saying and why they're saying it. You haven't been here long enough to understand anything at all about the culture. And you won't
People think
for a
they're gonna be the
long.
prodigal son. They're gonna be the prodigal son, and they're gonna come back and they're gonna be some fatty cows. But it's not. That's deep.
Yeah. And we just come expecting all this special treatment and we don't get it. We
So
get our
do y'all
feelings
have
hurt.
meetup groups, or do y'all
Yeah. Oh,
black
yeah, yeah, yeah.
expats in Ghana? It's funny to say
Absolutely.
it's black. You do.
Oh, yes. There are a
Absolutely.
lot, a lot
A
of them.
lot. Good. Good. Well, you
Yeah.
need that support sometime. You know,
Yeah.
that young sister, that sister, boots on the ground, brand new. She needs somebody that been there 18 years old. Say, girl, get a grip. It's gonna be okay. It just, you just need to manage your expectations and to give them that advice. That's not something that somebody else not in her situation can do. Or hasn't been and hasn't walked in the shoes that she's walked in, that she's walking in. And I mean, having that experience, it helps.
It does. But what I find is they often don't want to hear it. I had lunch with some people not long ago, and they've been here for I think a year. A year is nothing, nothing. And they are, going round and round with their contractor, their building contractor. I said, "How long has your contractor been here?" Because it's an African American. I said, "How long has that lady been here?" She said, "2 years." 2 years is nothing. She
Mhm.
don't know nothing in 2 years' time. How's she gonna help you?
Mhm.
Now, I had only just met them. But if I had talked to them, if they had talked to me, if we had got together and got to know each other before all of this disaster, and they've had some disasters, I could have said, okay, that doesn't look like a good idea, that there. Okay. And maybe you should ask somebody else about that situation. That doesn't sound right to me. And it's not that I can tell them the correct way to do things, but I can kind of help them see what they're looking at. But they
Playing the
often don't want to
picture.
hear it, you see, because there's a reason. And the reason is they swallowed the Kool-Aid. They drank the Kool-Aid about come back to Africa. This is your motherland. We're inviting you to come home. Hey, talk about okey doke, talk about psych. It's sad. It's sad. Don't get me started. It is sad.
That you have experienced yourself there. And I so appreciate you for sharing your story. I mean, I know a lot of people are private, and so I appreciate you, taking the time to share your story. Tell your brother I said thanks for him turning you on to me. I
Yeah.
can't wait to meet you in Panama, and it's just been an absolute joy to have you on the show. And I think I'll put your contacts and places to get the books. You got a website too? Oh, you're on Instagram.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Oh,
let the website go because I don't have any techie people working with me and I couldn't manage it.
so
Uh,
on Instagram, we'll put it across the screen. It's Miriam, Mir, no, I can't. I'm looking at it. Miriam,
Mariama Ross.
Yeah, Ross. It's your name.
Yeah,
That is
it's my name.
awesome. Okay, excellent. I didn't know you were on Instagram, and then we'll put the stuff for the links for the books too. So
Okay, that'd be
thank you
nice.
so much for being on the show.
It was a pleasure. You're fun.
Okay. I'll see you soon.
Okay, yeah, I'll look you up. I'll let you know when I'm coming.
Excelente. Gracias. Okay. So y'all know I'm in trouble again. So good call. Had I never really had anybody on the show from Africa and that I've lived in Africa. So a lot of that, and she's lived in different parts. So a lot of it was just like such good information. But anyway, y'all, I gotta run. I hope that you enjoyed that call. Follow us everywhere at Black Expats in Panama. Black Expat Journey is our podcast. And we're on YouTube and Instagram and all those great places. Shout out to my main man, Daryl Spears, Elite Conversations Podcast Media for producing my shows for me. Of course, Devin and Riley for creating Black Sit Radio, allowing us to put our voices in the world forever and ever and ever. Follow Miss Mariama. Mariama is in her books. I want her books. I definitely the one about the lizards. Her favorite Motown is her favorite songs from the 70s and 80s is anything Motown. And I don't know why I'm just thinking Where Did Our Love Go by the Supremes. So I think that's what we're gonna leave you with today. As always, just want to tell you, I love you, I love you, I love you. And there's just nothing you can do about it. This is your girl, Charlotte Van Horn, Black Expats in Panama, by way of Little Old Glassboro, New Jersey, right here on BlackSitRadio.com. Signing off, y'all. Peace and love. Ciao.